And of course, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you. And of course, this is how I officially welcome you to the show that seeks to demystify the automotive industry. This is Autofocus Live on Auto Afric TV. And of course, my name is Benny Yankey. Today is another insightful period where we choose to bring you the show that seeks to demystify the automotive industry. And today we are going to have a part two of the discussion that we had last 2 weeks on Instagram. Of course, yes, we're going to discuss the Ghana Automotive Development Policy this afternoon. Last 2 weeks we had a very insightful analysis about what the policy seeks to help the industry with, and of course today we are going to provide you with much education about what the policy entails right here on Auto Afric TV. Of course, the show is Autofocus, and you can simply be a part of this show by sending in your comments, your questions via Facebook. Yes, via Facebook. And pretty shortly, I will introduce my guests on the show. Pretty shortly, I'll introduce my guests on the show. Okay. Okay, very soon I'll introduce my guests on the show. We are live on Facebook, and you can simply be a part of this conversation by sending in your messages via the show live on Facebook. And very soon I'll introduce my guests on the show as well. Okay. And of course, my guests will be live on the show, and you can be a part of this conversation live on the show by the automotive industry. Once again, my name is Benny Yankey, and I trust that you are all having a very wonderful weekend. Yes, let me simply introduce my guests. I have Mr. Ofe AGYEPONG, who he is an automotive consultant at Engine Matters Ghana Limited, and of course, he happens to be my guest on the show today. Last 2 weeks, we had a very insightful discussion on the Ghana Automotive Development Policy, and today we are going to have part two of this conversation, where we are going to provide you with adequate education about what the policy seeks to achieve right here on the show, Autofocus. In the meantime, do want to follow us on our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, and of course on Twitter as well. And you can simply use the hashtag Autofocus. Mr. AGYEPONG, is it better now?
Yes, it's better. Yes, I put on my headset, so I think I'm okay.
Okay, I'm glad you joined me once again, and of course, today we are going to look at provide much education or much in-depth analysis for our viewers and get to understand the policy much more better live here on Autofocus. And let me ask you about the vision of this policy. When someone wants to ask about about the automotive policy, what answer will you give to that person?
Yes, I think I was saying earlier before the feed went off that when I have to answer that question, it makes me appear like a government spokesman, which I'm not anyway. But as far as in reading the documents, one thing that I saw was that the document says that the Ghana Automotive Development Policy, as far as vision, seeks to make Ghana a fully integrated and competitive industrial hub. I mean, for West Africa. So in short, Ghana, the government sees an opportunity to assemble cars in Ghana. And then, and the reason is that I think the West African market is a population of about 380 million. So there's a lot of people with mobility needs in terms of transportation. So there's a lot of potential, or there's a market there. And then to put things in perspective, Whereas Nigeria in 2019, the government did not, you could say, accept the offer of these, the foreign, the original equipment manufacturers, these companies that make cars, to assemble cars in Nigeria under the condition that they are offered a 10-year tax holiday. President Buhari did not accept that, but in our policy, we do accept that. So it just probably is because maybe we saw an opportunity. So because the bigger neighbor Nigeria says they won't give that to the OEMs, and we have. So there's opportunity for us, because like I said, the West African market is quite a big market. So, and then unemployment is a big deal also. So, you know, assembling cars it comes with some skill. So when the foreign entities come, once we have a structure, then there will be knowledge transfer, skills transfer. So those are all part of the reason for the policy. And then ultimately, even as a Ghanaian, I think there's an element of pride also to be able to assemble cars in your country. It speaks of, in terms of progress and development. That's something to say for that.
That's amazing. And of course, if you just joined us, this is Autofocus, and today we are discussing more about the automotive development policy of Ghana, and making sure that you out there watching us will be able to get to understand the analysis that we're making about the policies better. And today, the show is also live on Afric TV, and use the hashtag Autofocus with your comments and questions live on the show as well. Now, let's look at the scope of the policy. When we look at the scope of the policy, say that the initial scope of the policy is to provide necessary framework to establish assembly and manufacturing capacity in Ghana. The initial coverage of vehicles to be assembled under the policy include new passenger cars, the light commercial vehicles, which include pickups, minibuses, and of course, cargo vans. Now, looking at the scope, how is this going to help the industry and of course, the value chain as well?
Yes, so, as far as the initial scope of the policy, in terms of coverage, yes, I think passenger vehicles, everybody knows that's a market. A lot of imports. I think as far as statistics, these days roughly about 100,000 cars come into the country every year. So that if the government has seen the need to partner these OEMs to come and assemble cars, and they want to target that market, then there's economic sense there. And then you move on to SUVs. I'll combine. I think as far as the 100,000 numbers, it's a blend of both. There's passenger cars, SUVs as well. But maybe my interest is in more of the pickups and the minibuses, because as we all know, when it comes to public transport, we currently do not have a well-structured public transport system. So it's the informal sector, the trotros, these minibuses that move a lot of people in the cities and towns. So hopefully the policy will be able to link up with these various driver unions and these unions, these GPRTU and the rest, so that they'll find a formal way to, some financing and vehicle purchasing arrangements in such a way as to gradually get rid of these, you could say, unsafe and sometimes improvised vehicles that are used to transport Ghanaians
people
in these years. So I think there's a potential there if the policy is implemented in a way that's conscious of the dynamics, the fact that the minibuses do move a lot of us, and consistently as the states, and I'm sure the states authorities and the various government agencies with respect to road safety and the likes, even as they have made consistent appeals to these vehicle owners that don't import cargo vehicles and come and convert them to passenger vehicles. That appeal it's not really heeded a lot of time. But however, if government structures something where you have vehicle manufacturers here and you are developing a policy, then within that policy, if you link these unions, then you can essentially arrange some proper purchase agreement with them so that over time you phase out these rickety vehicles that are on our roads. So I think that's a good part. And I think even to move further into the policy, it says about further policy interventions with regards to bigger buses. The policy sees that in the future. So when we get to buses, that's also an area that a solution needs to be provided, because the current system is not well structured. So the policy can do a lot of things if it's well implemented.
Okay, that's amazing. And I want us to take our time and then be able to provide much education to our viewers about the policy thematic areas, the areas that the policies cover. Now, we can mention of the incentive and regulatory framework, which we have the fiscal incentives of new vehicles for registered assemblies of the like in the Ghana automotive development policy. We have the tax holidays. So I want you to touch more about the tax holidays, and then we can move on to the next one as well.
Right. So with regards to the tax holidays, that's what I was saying, that perhaps for us as a country, I guess that's where maybe the investors and the OEMs, the vehicle manufacturers, I guess that's where they saw that our government was trying to create the necessary environment for them. Vehicle assembly, and you get yourself into this category where you come and assemble completely knocked down units. You are going to enjoy 10 years tax holiday. And even for the other assemblers who will come into the market and come and assemble only enhanced semi-knocked down units, they will also enjoy 5 years tax holiday. So in terms of the supply side, yes, the government, as far as the policy, the GADP policy, this policy has done enough in terms of the framing to make sure that it's appealing to the investors and the OEMs.
Okay, so if someone wants to know the difference between the SKD and the CKD, what is the difference between the semi knockdown and of course the complete knockdown?
I'm not even too much into all those technicalities. I just know that in terms of kits, so when you say completely knockdown, then that means that you are essentially going to do a bulk of the assembling here.
Okay.
So that's why, because it's the kit that will come, everything is separate. So you come and fix chassis, all the parts. Primarily, you come and fix the majority of the parts here to put the car together. Whereas with the enhanced semi-knockdown, it means some parts are already fitted together. So you come and do some work, but not a whole lot of work. Assembling comes to capacity, because for you, if the assembler is bringing completely knocked down, then it means it anticipates that either it's exporting the skill sets to come and to completely assemble these units, or there is the expertise, local expertise to do that. So yeah, but those are, I mean, I think the things that people who are more like engineers can speak to that, you know.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate the knowledge that you've added up to that as well. Now, with the policy thematics, we've mentioned the fiscal incentive policies which the government is giving to the OEMs, and looking at the incentives that government has given to the OEMs, does it negatively affect our local dealers as well? Is there any way that it affects the local industry?
Yes, so for here I have to speak from facts, and the fact is that the policy in terms of implementation should have been implemented in its fully on October 1st, I think 2020, the year 2020. So if the policy had been implemented as was set, then a part of it, when the Customs Amendment Act made in line with this act, in line with this policy, sought to actually amended the duty rates. So the import duty rates were amended from the 5%, between the 5% to 20% to 30%, 35%. So if it had been implemented in that form, then all importers of vehicles would have had to now be used vehicles for that matter, would have had to pay 35% of duty on the vehicles that they import. Then in that case, it just means that there's no business essentially in that line. That business that doesn't make too much sense then, because if you are hit with just 35% import duty and you are going to compete with someone who is getting 5-year tax holidays, 10-year tax holidays, and other incentives, then you wouldn't. So in essence, the dealers wouldn't have been able to compete. And I guess that's why there was the pushback. And the pushback was sought to say that, yes, we may agree with the policy in its form, but in terms of how it's implemented, some aspects could have been done differently. I mean, that's the reason why, as I'm saying now, as we speak, that aspect which sought to introduce 35% import duty tax has not materialized yet. So yes, if it was implemented as stated in the policy, then obviously the dealers would have been they wouldn't have been in a good position. I mean,
okay. Now there is an aspect of the policy where accident cars have been banned in the country. So how does this negatively affect our local dealers who import these accident cars or maybe into the country?
yes, so that was a big deal. I mean, because I think anybody who's been following the happenings in the automotive space can, I mean, at least easily confirm that in the past 10 years, lots of importers have shifted to salvage vehicles, and the salvage vehicles make that importation, or that business makes economic sense. The reason is simple. When these cars in the States, they get into accidents, and these accidents, as I was saying last week, they vary from very minor accidents to, I mean, really serious accidents. And when these accidents the vehicles get into these accidents, the insurance companies, they write them off a lot of times. So, and there's a secondary market after the insurance company writes them off and pays off these insured individuals. Then the insurance companies have a market where they sell them off to auto insurance companies that they resell these ones on the market. So the two popular ones that most people are aware of is IAAI. So that's IAAI.com and then Copart.com. So these two primary entities are where the insurance companies sell off these cars which have been salvaged. And then over time, because Ghanaians realize that even if they buy these cars and attempt to fix them in the States, then they have to contend with US labor rates, and they are not small. I mean, I think as far as I can remember, US sort of have these labor rates of around $10 per hour. That's for generalized, I mean, regular labor. But mechanics are skilled labor, so DS is upwards maybe around $20 an hour. So you can, if you fix these cars in the States, it cost you money. However, when you bring them here, the labor rates, I mean, comparatively are very, very low. So that's the reason why when people saw that opportunity, they took real advantage of it.
Okay. Now, there is another aspect of the policy under the market development and trade facilitation. Now, which is very, very crucial. And
just so yes, I finished off. So you were saying yeah, so the policy sought to, I mean, was specific, was banning that, but as I said, because it hasn't been implemented as was stated, that's why I don't want us to dwell on that too much. But yes, the policy was quite straightforward in how it sought to ban the importation of salvage vehicles, and it did not categorize as to what sort of salvage vehicles it was banning or it sought to ban, because like I said, salvage vehicles, they range from very minor accidents. It could be just your bumper or your door, which are easily replaceable, because between you and I, we know that, and everybody watching or anybody who watch later, when you are driving and someone hits your bumper, you don't say that I no longer, the car is no longer safe for me. You go to your shop, you go and look for a new fender. That is, if the damage is very serious. If even the damage is not serious, you look for the body works guy and he touches it up, then you spray it. So those are just to let people know that when they hear, that's why even though the technical term is salvage, but here in our market, we call it accident. It's a bit unfair. The accident is on an unfair description because it just literally means that once the car has been in an accident, then it's no longer good to be used, you know. Because in the conversation around these salvage vehicles and the Ghana automotive development policy, there was a point where I think one minister said that one of the reasons why the government was in implementing this policy, or one justification for the policy and the ban, specifically for the ban on the salvage vehicles, was for safety concerns, which I found quite strange because, like I say, when the salvage vehicles come, they come as is. So you see them. The people, the government officials at the port, they see these cars, how some are really damaged. Some are damaged to the point that most people, to the casual observer, you ask yourself, how was this car allowed to enter the country? And then at the same place, you also see people who just have door damage, which anybody, these cars with minor damage, when you pick the car up, you drive them even to your house or wherever you're taking them, because the car is drivable, you know, but it's just a minor damage. So that's why I'm saying that those were the issues here. But yes, the policy sought to ban, but it hasn't been implemented. So I said in that form. So that's why I don't want us to dwell on that too much.
Okay. But there's another aspect of the policy, which is the market development and trade facilitation. One aspect of that area caught my attention with regards to auto financing. You and I can tell that right now, if you and I want to get a car, a brand new car, it's very, very difficult to get a brand new car. For example, if I want to go to Silver Star to get a brand new car, I wouldn't have the capacity to raise money to go and buy, let's say, about a $50,000 car. Now, with this policy, the government is trying to make sure that some of these facilitations are being provided for Ghanaians to be able to own their own cars. Do you think it's really feasible with regards to if this aspect of the policy is implemented?
Yes, that's an interesting part. So I'm just even looking at the policy, and it says that to make financing for the purchase of new vehicles easily accessible to consumers through affordable payment plans. So, I mean, it speaks it speaks English. That's all right. But then when you hit the real, I'll give you a good example. Recently, as recent as last week, the governor of Bank of Ghana was surprised, or was expressing his surprise that at the time when the government Bank of Ghana's base rate is 13%, banks are still lending, as a matter of fact, are still lending at a minimum 20.5 APR. So that tells you that what the policy seeks and the market dynamics, there's a disconnect. So it's only when the policy is implemented, then we'll know what sort of affordable payment plans that the policy sort or mentioned. But as I sit in front of you, I know for a fact that I haven't seen any special financing schemes. I mean, so vehicle financing scheme. And I'll give you I will just digress a little and let you know how there are occasions where the state or the government the state has made provisions, special provisions, and this is in the area of mortgage. So with mortgage, whereas the general interest rate is still in the upwards of government, had a plan, like a direct plan to a affordable housing scheme. The government has this scheme, I think home purchase scheme, where individuals, government sector workers can borrow from selected banks an amount of 140,000 Ghana cedis at 11%. At 11%, that's even lower than the Bank of Ghana's base rate. 11%, and for a period of 20 years. So when you do that, then it means that even though the market has different conditions, which in this case of credit is a little high, you as the government, because of your policy of, in this case, affordable housing, you have gone to design a separate scheme. In this case, so if we are waiting, if that scheme where vehicle financing today develop something similar, then that's where we can speak. But for now, we can take the words as we see in the policy, that the consumers will be able to get affordable payment plan. But in terms of the market, no, we can't. There's no affordable payment plans for anybody when it comes to car financing.
Okay, I think with regards to car financing is another area that we will specifically find time and discuss this topic very well to see, and also get some of the government officials involved with the discussion, or maybe we can have a forum where we can be able to share ideas to see how best we can be able to make sure that at least auto financing will become so easy in Ghana for at least Ghanaians to be able to drive their own cars as well. Now, with regards to the policy under the market and development and trade facilitation, is there there's another aspect of which is the export development? Is there any chance of us being able to export some of these cars which are going to be assembled in Ghana here to other West African countries?
For that, I don't think I've done any work in that area. But what I can say once again is what I said about the fact that for us, even in West Africa, Ghana has always been a place that has been known to take the lead in certain sectors. So as the policy stipulates, we want to be a hub, a vehicle assembly hub in West Africa, because we know, as I said, there's a market, and the market is about 380 million people. So there is potential. And then when you add to the fact that we do have some landlocked countries, who, for instance, Burkina Faso, they transit their goods through us. So there's opportunity. I mean, that one we can, especially when the bigger neighbor, Nigeria, didn't give in to some of the proposals from these OEMs and the investors. So which means Ghana has an advantage in this sense, but the idea is always, but the incentives look good. So we are hoping that when the prices, after the vehicles are assembled, the prices will be competitive in these West African markets that we intend to export to. Yeah, so I think it's doable. But like I said, it's not something that I have data on, so I can't really speak to specifics in terms of data and the work that has been done by the government in the area.
Okay. And of course, if you just tune in, this is Autofocus live on Autofocus, live on Afric TV, and of course, the show is live on our Facebook, of course, and you can simply be a part of this conversation. Your thoughts, your comments are also welcome on the show. The policy is very broad, and definitely we will organize a forum to discuss more about that. Let's try and bring the conversation to a close in the next few minutes by delving into the aspect of environment, standard, and safety. Policy also seeks to achieve areas, making sure that we have a green environment, because for the last few years, you can testify that global warming has become one of the biggest issues that we are all facing. And of course, some of these vehicles that are being produced can we can tell that has been a contributing factor to some of these challenges with regards to global warming. And there has been the introduction of electric cars, and I believe that the policy going forward will be able to touch more on the use of electric vehicles. But let's look at this with regards to the environment standards and safety. I think with regards to assembling the cars in Ghana here, which we believe that these OEMs have the expertise, have the skills, have the requisite equipment in making all these things possible. How do we also ensure that we keep our environment, like we make our environment safe with some of these vehicles being assembled in Ghana here?
Yes, so in terms of the safety aspect and environment, in terms of emissions and the rest, I think that was also one of the key, you could say one of the key arguments for the side, that's the government, in terms of justifying the reason why this policy needed to be implemented, even though there was, I think even the GRA, if the policy is implemented, was supposed to lose annually over 800 million Ghana cedis in taxes from foreign importation of cars. But the state was still keen on it because it felt that whereas currently is, let's say, free for all and everybody can import any car, even though we do know that vehicles that are over 10 years attract a certain penalty. So you would think that that would maybe serve as a deterrent to people not to import those cars. But I think a lot of time people do the math and they realize that, okay, I'm bringing a bus. I'm going to use it for trotro.
Okay.
You say it's overage and I pay a few thousands. I still do the math and I can still make my money. So people, that policy or that, it hasn't, I don't think it has achieved the desired effect. So that's the reason why the policy feels, okay, once you are selling new cars and over time, everything goes as planned, then you will have more new cars on our roads. And these new cars, they're in terms of environmental standards, in terms of emission standards, perform better because they are fitted with all sorts of things. There's all these stuff. So that's the reason why. And then obviously newer cars, all the latest safety features, all the necessary airbags. Yeah. So I think that's what they thought. Yeah. So I think for that, yes, it's all well and good. But at the end of the day, all of us know in Ghana that it's one thing to write a policy or go to parliament and get an act passed, a bill passed into an act. But the more important thing is to enforce. That's what the issue is. So you can put all these nice words in the policy. What has to be done is, as I said, even still going back to the salvage and letting people understand that just because someone has brought a salvage vehicle doesn't mean that that car is unsafe. Because personally, I import salvage vehicles. It's something I know how to do. And I'll tell you for a fact, this year I've imported about 3 vehicles for different clients. The worst that I have done in terms of importing is door damage. I mean, as one door, you buy a new door, you fix it. What do you lose? You might lose a side curtain airbag, side. But in Ghana's current regime, in terms of regulating cars which are registered in Ghana, even brand new cars which are sold, a lot of brand new cars which are sold by these OEMs in Ghana. Let me even go back. Some cars which are sold as brand new in Ghana, a lot of times what you have is just driver airbag, passenger airbag, nothing like side curtain airbags, knee airbag. So if I have imported, let's say 2019 Mazda, I've lost only a side curtain airbags, but all about 5 or 6 additional airbags are functional. And you say that it's in quote unsafe because it has the mere title of salvage. I mean, they just shows you that there wasn't a lot of understanding in terms of the space, in terms of drafting of the policy and the sort of understanding of what the salvage vehicle means. And when it comes to, especially when you link it to safety. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's try and bring our conversation to a close. And of course, we'll find our way around it, and then we will call it a day for today. I want you to touch on Totachi. Tell us more about Totachi, and of course, how can users, let's say, car users, be able to use Totachi?
Yes, so thank you once again. I mean, so everything I do, from car reviews, imports of cars, and sale of cars, to vehicle consultancy, everything I do, like in terms of, it's 360 essentially.